Hello and welcome to the Trinity Fit Over 40 podcast with me, Rob Burkhead.
And me, Ben Hughes. We are the co-founders of Trinity Transformation and creators of the Fit Over 40 method. And together with our world-class coaching team, we've helped over 6,000 women over 40 to fit back into their favourite clothes over the past decade. For more information about what we do, go to www.fit40info.com.
So today's episode is part 2 of the 5 biggest menopause weight loss myths that we've seen holding women back that have stopped them seeing results in their 40s, 50s and 60s over the past decade. So sit back and relax and welcome to today's podcast.
We've worked with so many women over 40 who were struggling to lose weight and who weren't seeing any movement on the scales no matter what they tried. These women were trying all of the things which works in their 20s and 30s, but then stepping on the scales at the end of the week and seeing zero movement. And for many of these ladies, this was starting to have a big impact on their confidence and their self-esteem, making it really difficult for them to enjoy life to the fullest. And I can't tell you how many women I've spoken to who felt they were no longer able to wear their favourite clothes, who were choosing their clothes to cover up problem areas instead of wearing what they liked, putting in loads and loads of hard work and effort, but then not seeing any change in the mirror. And starting to worry they'd never be able to get their weight under control and never be able to see the amazing results they wanted. But despite all of that, we helped these women to remove all the barriers that were blocking them from seeing results and to quickly and easily get the scales moving, lose the excess weight, regain their confidence and get back to feeling amazing in all their clothes, all in just a few short months. There are 5 main reasons why women struggle to lose weight around menopause, 3 of which we've covered in part 1 of this series a couple of weeks ago. And in today's podcast, we're going to reveal the 2 final reasons that hold women back around menopause, and we will share our top strategies which have helped over 6,000 women to drop 1 to 2 dress sizes, fit back into all their favourite clothes and feel incredible wearing anything they like in 12 weeks or less.
So just to recap what we covered in part 1 then very quickly. So there's the first kind of 3 reasons why women struggle to lose weight and turn up around menopause are: firstly, they're doing the wrong type of exercise for their age and hormones. So this means they don't see any results no matter how hard they try. So if they're trying things like cardio, HIIT, spinning, running, none of that works well around menopause. If you want to find out exactly why, go and check out part 1. Secondly, a lot of the people we work with, they were not seeing results before we worked together because they were eating either too much or drinking too much, or they're consuming too little, and too little is just as big a problem as too much. And this is not just about calories. So again, people can get quite obsessed with calories, focusing on these really low calorie diets like 1,200 or 800 calories a day, but actually it's about getting the right amount of the key 3. So this is calories, protein and fiber. And a lot of the people we work with were having too little of all of them. So not enough protein, not enough fiber, and trying to eat a very small amount of calories, which wasn't really working for them. So they didn't see any of the results they wanted. It overstressed the body, and then it causes kind of the body to really hold on to fat around menopause. And then the third reason why people weren't seeing good results is they don't have anyone to turn to for help and support when life throws them a curveball. So they were trying to do it on their own. We all like to think we can do it on their own, but for the women we work with and for women around menopause, often life is more complicated than ever. Not only have you got hormonal changes, but they've also got to a point in their career where they've climbed the career ladder for the past 20, 30 years. They're in a really, really high pressure role. It's really, really stressful. And then on top of that, they're also still juggling family responsibilities a lot of the time, whether it's caring for aging parents or children, or kind of looking after both of them, what they call the sandwich generation. It's a lot to deal with on top of trying to manage everything on their own and keep themselves accountable, and tends to not work. So what would happen is people have a family crisis, there's a stressful week at work, a holiday or weekend blowout, or any other kind of distraction, and that leads them to giving up. So those are the first 3 mistakes: wrong type of exercise, eating too much or too little, and only focusing on calories, or they don't have anyone to turn to for help and support, so they don't have that support and accountability. But there's still a couple more mistakes that we see all the time that stops women from seeing progress around menopause. So Ben, what else do you see happening that keeps women stuck around menopause?
So there's a couple of other things which keep women stuck, but before I go into these, if you haven't already, if you want the kind of full version, the full detail about everything that you're just talking about, Rob, so everyone listening, make sure you go back, check out that previous episode, and you can get the kind of full information on those first 3 points, which are so important and they're so crucial. But the 4th point is that people don't focus on changing their mindset, which is essential to maintain your results long term. So if you're always having thoughts like, it's not working for me, it's different for me, screw it, I've ruined it all after having one bad day or one bad week, or you're thinking, I deserve a treat after a stressful week at work, it's all too easy to then give in when life gets hard or life gets stressful. For example, if your work runs on late, you're feeling really stressed, and then you get into this situation where you're either thinking you can either have a takeaway or you can get yourself kind of a healthy, ready meal. But if you haven't worked on your mindset, you're going to make that negative choice. You're going to order that massive takeaway. You're going to open that bottle of wine. It's not necessarily going to get you the results you want.
So Ben, then we need to work on the mindset. What can people actually do though? What can they do instead of just turning to the wine, turning to the takeaway, those default choices when things get hard?
So although it comes down to kind of making the choice in the moment, so figuring out what choice you're going to take, whether it's a takeaway or the healthy ready meal or something you've prepared in advance that's more healthy, making that decision, a lot of that comes down to what's happened previously. So the work that you've put in previously will mean that when you get into that decision where you're having to kind of make that choice, that you'll make the right choice. It's almost like, if you think about an athlete who's got to run 100 meters or something like that, how fast they run in that 100 meters mostly comes down to what is the training they've done over the previous weeks, months, years leading up to that one 10-second thing where they then get the world record. So it's about doing that preparation. So what we recommend for our clients is to use mindset tools to basically put your head in the right place every day, which allows you to then be consistent. So you're building this mindset of one of those kind of fit people or healthy people. You're becoming someone who can just make those choices consistently. And we do this with our clients through their journey, focusing specifically on it in phase 2 of our program. So there's 4 phases inside of the Fit Over 40 program. First phase is mainly about fat loss and kind of, what to do in terms of your actual nutrition, exercise, etc. Once we've got a handle on that, once our clients have started seeing some results, we realize then that it's so important that they work on that mindset so they can maintain long term. So the second 12 weeks, we use a tool called the Stress Shield that our clients can use to basically stay consistent no matter what life throws at them.
And this is really fascinating. So there's more and more research coming out about this. And one of the parts of that we do is we teach our clients to do a very simple, quick form of meditation. They can do it for a couple of minutes a day. And there's more and more research coming out about how this can stop things like emotional eating, stop things like stress eating, because we have this part of our brain called the posterior cingulate cortex, PCC, and then the default mode network, which we basically fall back into. This is what we fall back into when we're stressed, when we can't think straight. If you've ever had this where you almost find yourself opening the fridge or the cupboards and you're eating things and you're like, how have I even got here? I haven't really even thought this through. I've just automatically done it. That's that default kind of pathway, the neurological pathway taking over. And what things like meditation, what the Stress Shield tool will do, and they've literally studied people's brains and they can see these parts of the brain switching on or not switching on so much, is it will give you the ability to kind of like buffer that so you don't go straight into that default pattern. It actually means that that part of the brain doesn't light up when you're stressed as much, or if at all. Whereas previously, a lot of people we work with are very stressed. As soon as that happens, that default system switches on, and it's something that's developed for when we were more primitive creatures. We haven't actually evolved that much from that stage to make sure we go when we're stressed and get hunt the animal, get the food, so we survive. But now we don't need that in that form. The food is plentiful when we're really, really stressed. The last thing we actually probably need to do is go and order the takeaway or go to the cupboards and raid the crisps and the wine. So it doesn't just change it on a woo-woo, touchy-feely state. It also changes your actual neurological pathways in your brain so that you make better choices. So that's 4 mistakes. We covered 3 last time. 1 there, work on that mindset, but really you can change how your brain responds to stress so you don't make those choices anymore. What's the last thing you see people struggling with around menopause, Ben?
So the final thing is just people that lack accountability. So accountability is absolutely essential. So what we mean by accountability is having someone checking up on you, basically making sure that you'll do what you said you do. So holding you to account, because let's face it, when you're stressed, when you're tired, when you've had a really bad week of work, it's easy to let yourself down. It's easy to just say, do you know what? I can't really be bothered. And like, if you're the only person who you're going to be disappointing or letting down in that situation, it's very easy to just sort of write it off and say, do you know what? I can't do this. I haven't got the energy for it. I'm not going to bother with it. So unless you're in the 1% of the population who seem to have basically unlimited willpower and they can just keep themselves accountable, then having someone external to be accountable is an absolute must.
Yeah, it's so important. Like I've mentioned this on recent episodes. I actually have a coach now, so I've got my session today that even I work with. This is a fitness coach. It's for Olympic weightlifting, which is something I'm trying to improve. But I just wasn't doing I knew kind of what I needed to do, to be honest, but I just wasn't doing it because I didn't have anyone to answer to when I had that busy week of work. So we now have a team of 12 people. It's a lot of work to manage. I know a lot of the people we work with have significantly more things going on, so it's even more difficult. And what I found was I wanted to see this progress in this area of my health and fitness, but on my own, it just wasn't happening. I was thinking, yeah, I should do that. And then it would get to Friday and I hadn't done I'd done my other types of fitness stuff that I do, which have become habit now, which happens for everyone if you do something consistently enough for long enough. But this particular thing I wanted to progress in, I was not doing it on my own. So having that person who says, first of all, here's what you're going to do this week. So giving you that structure, this is what I found has really helped me. So that Sam, my coach, gives me the workouts. I don't then have to think about them. I get them provided for me, and I know I'm confident in his ability to get the result I want. So that's great. So I get that. And then if I haven't done it, he'll message and say, you missed your workout today. What's going on? Are you planning to do it later in the week? So he's keeping me accountable to it and then reviewing my progress every single week as well. And without that, it's really, really easy to give up after a hard day or a hard week, or say, I'll come back to it next week. And without that consistency, you can't see any results. And I think we like to believe we can do it on our own. For about a year, I thought, oh yeah, I'll crack this weightlifting thing on my own. And in reality, I've seen more progress in the last couple of months working with Sam than I have done in the last year, just by working with someone who's not only an expert in what I want to progress in, but also someone who is keeping me accountable to actually doing the work that realistically I can make the time to do, but I just wasn't on my own. And for a lot of us, like when we used to go to the gym together when we were 21, 22, 23, look, it's a lot easier. We thought we were busy and stressed. I think everyone did at that age. This was at university. In reality, we had loads of time and we'd go for the gym for 1 to 2 hours, and our life was less complicated. It was very easy. We weren't having to report to a team, to manage the team and all of that stuff. But now it's very hard. Doing it alone is really, really hard when your life becomes more complicated, more stressful. And it's very, very easy to fail in private. Like for me, if I didn't do those weightlifting sessions on my own, there's no repercussion short term to giving up, but I would not get to where I wanted to be long term. So we need some sort of help here when it's really, really difficult on our own. I think we don't want to acknowledge we want help. I think if you're anything like me, then kind of proud. Like I like to think I can do it on my own, but for a lot of people, I think that may not be the case. So what would you say, Ben, is like the best solution to someone who knows they should be doing something, but that perhaps they're not doing it, or they're not doing it consistently enough and they're not seeing any result?
So for someone who's kind of struggling with that consistency, I'd always say if you're going to succeed with any difficult achievement in life, that accountability is going to be absolutely essential. So for example, you show up to work because if you didn't, your boss or your colleagues would notice. So essentially you are accountable to them. And if you look at every like professional athlete, pretty much anyone who's like put in loads and loads of work and seen some sort of success, you always look at, when you look into it, they've had a coach or a team of coaches, or there's always been someone there. It's not like, Usain Bolt or someone, he's just decided to learn how to do the 100 meters and become the best sprinter of all time by himself. He's had a team of people behind him helping him get to that point and keeping him accountable to do it. And I think another myth as well that people think is that some people, if you look at someone who's kind of really consistent with things and they're always doing workouts and they're in very good shape, people think that those people are always, they're really excited to exercise, maybe they always want to do their workouts, etc. The reality is, like, even from myself and you, Rob, I know we've been doing fitness for say 15 years or something like that, even after that time and being really consistent with it over that time, still most times when I have to come and do some exercise, especially when it's something that's not necessarily super fun exercise, more kind of training stuff that's a bit more mundane, I very rarely actually think, wow, I'm so excited to do this training session. Usually it's like I've got to sort of drag myself into it, and having that extra accountability means that you're having to do less dragging yourself towards doing it, and you've got somebody else who's almost giving you a helping hand and just making it much easier to do what you know that you need to be doing anyway. And the good thing about it is, I mean, it might sound like that sounds like a miserable thing, having to force yourself to do these workouts, etc. But the reality is, as you'll know, as most people will know, the feeling that you get once you've finished doing the workout or finished eating the healthy meal or finished doing whatever it is you should have done, you then feel it's then a very positive feeling. You're like, wow, I'm so glad I did that. I'm so glad I actually pushed through and did it. So you do end up overall feeling better, feeling more positive about it. And I think the more you build that habit of like being really consistent with your eating and your exercise, etc., once you've really got into it, it becomes a lot more of an enjoyable process. But at the very start, I think the earlier you are in the journey, almost the more accountability that you need, and the more useful that accountability is going to be. So essentially, accountability is key. Anything that, for most people, things like work, etc., the reason you show up and you're so consistent with that is because there is accountability there. So it's just about creating the equivalent with your health and fitness. So what do you need? So you need someone who's basically keeping an eye on what you're doing, checking in with you at least every week, checking in on you if they notice that you're not doing what you should be doing, or that you may have gone off track, or you might be struggling. We don't really recommend that this is a friend or family member. I don't want to say it never works. I think it can work sometimes, but you have to. It's very rare that you'll find someone who's going to be a good give you good accountability, who's a friend or family member. There's a couple of reasons. So with a friend, usually because they're your friend primarily and they're not kind of your coach, they won't be too hard on you. So they'll let you off the hook. If you say, I can't be bothered, they'll say, oh, no worries, it's okay. Don't worry about not doing it today. Whereas a coach will hold you to a higher standard and say, listen, I know you can't be bothered, but you've got to get this done. And then the second thing with a family member, so if you choose, for example, a partner, when we get that feedback from a partner, it's like, oh, have you done your workout? Or do you think, is that a good thing to be eating on your diet plan, etc.? It comes across in a really kind of naggy way, I think, when it's from a family member, especially when it's a partner. And often when people get that feedback from a partner or from someone who's close to them, like a family member, you'll almost rebel and kind of do the opposite just to sort of prove them wrong, kind of thing. So it needs to be someone who's impartial, someone you respect, who's ideally as well experienced in what you're trying to achieve. So you know that when they're giving you advice, when they're telling you to do something, they've already helped thousands of people do the same thing. So it's much easier to just trust what they're saying and just kind of go with the flow and follow the process. And accountability is just one of the reasons that our clients see such fantastic results, as every member of our Fit Over 40 program is assigned their own coach who is an expert in helping women over 40 to see results. They check in with them every single week. If they don't check in, it's flagged up and we're straight in touch to find out what's not working and help get them back on track as quickly as possible.
And I have a great example of this. So this is from a client of ours called Sarah. So she was kind of stuck gaining weight during a really challenging menopause until she kind of changed the 5 things we talked about today and in the previous episode. So Sarah's 51 and she's from East Sussex, and she runs sales operations in the organisation that she works for. And she said, I had an awful journey into the menopause. So this is a quote. She said, I was not quite realising what it was, but suffering with aching joints, high levels of anxiety and feeling overwhelmed. And most of all, surprised by how much I was aging over a short period of time. My weight crept up over a few years, and I let it happen, thinking that this was just normal and part of the aging process. I went through the process of exercising, mainly high impact or cardio, convincing myself that I needed to break into a sweat to be burning calories and make a difference, and eventually stopping either through injury, periods of work stress, or lack of results. So all of these things are kind of mistakes that we talked about in the previous episode. So she said, I was still bothered by feeling sluggish, out of shape and disheartened by only fitting into a fraction of my wardrobe, yet couldn't bring myself to remove the smaller size clothes to make much needed space for the larger sizes. I met with a friend who I hadn't seen for almost a year, who was 8 months into her journey with Trinity, and she looked amazing. She hadn't just lost weight, but her shape was also changing to slim and athletic, and she looked radiant. Naturally, I was interested to know what she did to transform herself, and she told me about the Trinity plan and where she was on the Trinity journey. I signed up the next day. I tried Noom the previous year and found it expensive for what it was, with an off-the-shelf calorie target that was easy to cheat on with no accountability. I also found the daily reading on tips to stay on track excessive, and ended up stopping reading them and eventually stopped the program altogether. I'm 4 weeks into the Trinity plan and have so far lost half a stone. I was surprised how quickly I started seeing results with the workouts and felt better in my clothes within the first week. I thought the hardest thing for me to give up on this plan would be alcohol. Because since starting, I've overcome that and all my cravings, and I'm really enjoying my fitter and healthier outlook on life. The meal plan's really easy to follow. I don't feel at all deprived due to the guided eating patterns and targets. I'm also enjoying the workouts and love the way I feel afterwards, and particularly how much stronger and more toned I am. This gives me the motivation to keep driving forward and to make sure the exercise is properly managed in my week. The investment's worth every penny to teach you the nutrition and exercise skills needed to sustain long-term and healthy weight loss. The goals are customised to work for you, and the team are a driving force to help make sure your goals are achievable and a reality.
Amazing. And if you want to find out more about the plan that Sarah followed, along with thousands of other women who lost 1 to 2 stone and 1 to 2 dress sizes in 12 weeks or less, go to www.fit40info.com and you'll find all of the details on that page.
So that just about wraps it up for today's podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll catch you again next week for another episode. We will see you then.